Hi guys, Fighting Games Month continues on the PS Vita. Today I'm looking at the Guilty Gear series. So there's Guilty Gear on the PS1, Guilty Gear Judgement, and Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus on the PSP. So let's take a look at each of these three games. So this is the menu for Guilty Gear on the PS1. Let's start with this one. So I have not played a Guilty Gear game before. I decided to play these games and download them just because of this month, Fighting Game Month on the Vita. And so when I downloaded Guilty Gear on the PS1, I was kind of surprised that there's only really normal mode versus mode training mode. There's no actual story or anything, and I guess it's really kind of a game of its time. So back in the early sort of 2000s, 90s, 2000s, we had fighting games like Street Fighter 2 where there was no real story. There was a bit of story, but not a lot. And so, Guilty Gear is like that. This game, when I look at it, there's not many characters. You've got no story really, and so it is just more about the fighting and the mechanics of the game. So that was a little bit, a little bit disappointing. I guess it's like I said, it's a sign of the time that we had at that point. But then, when you think about the PS1 fighting games, where you had Street Fighter 3 Alpha, you had Tekken, where actually they did start bringing in more story and things and more story and modes into the games. So I think this was, when I saw this, it was a little bit surprising that actually, it is a little bit bare bones in terms of what is available. In terms of the actual fighting system and the gameplay, it's decent. It still feels a little bit sluggish, but this is a PS1 game. This is like 20 years plus old, so it's not going to be as good as some recent games, and it doesn't feel as good to play as Street Fighter. But I was enjoyed the gameplay itself. I thought that was fine. If you understand the Street Fighter move sets, then you'll understand pretty much how to play this game. But when I look at the three Guilty Gear games, I'd say this is the weakest in terms of content and in terms of gameplay as well. The other ones really do kind of improve on it. So, having said all that, let's jump in to the next Guilty Gear game. So Guilty Gear Judgment on the PSP is actually two games. Guilty Gear Judgment is a 2D brawler, kind of like Streets of Rage. It's pretty decent. I didn't feel it's as good as something like Streets of Rage or Final Fight, but it's not bad. And it comes with Guilty Gear X2, which was a PS2 game, and which they brought to the PSP. So this is the fighting game really. So let's take a look at it. So this is Guilty Gear X2, and you can see compared to the original PS1 Guilty Gear, there's a lot more characters available. So given this is a PSP game, obviously it looks much better than the PS1 game. There's a big improvement in terms of the graphics and in terms of the gameplay, the smoothness of the gameplay as well. I think it's a really great game to look at, actually, especially when you consider this is a PSP game. It looks great on the Vita screen. The sprites are really nice and big, and it just plays really well. So, having not played a Guilty Gear game before, I was just really impressed with this. There's a couple of mechanics I really like as well. So, I've mentioned on the video that really I'm someone that's played a lot of Street Fighter games, and so I wasn't really familiar with the Guilty Gear games at all. And there's one mechanic I particularly like is the double jump. So when you play the Marvel vs. Capcom games or X-Men, the kind of the early sort of Capcom, those fighting games, those brawlers, um, where you have kind of a big jump, you press down and up, and you do a big jump, kind of double the length, double the height of the screen. For this game, for Guilty Gear, you actually have kind of a double jump option. So you can choose when to jump up, which actually changes the game significantly and just makes it much more sort of better, much more vertical. You can react to potential dangers as well. So in Marvel vs. Capcom, you do your big jump, and then you kind of have to deal with the kind of consequences of that. So you can't really correct. Whereas here, you can do that second jump when you want to, when you need to, and it means you're just much more flexible in terms of trying to avoid damage. I thought it adds a lot more kind of depth to the combat. You've also got an option for recovery, which you do have in some Street Fighter games, where if you're getting knocked down, you can press one of the attack buttons and recover before you hit the ground. So again, that makes it makes it a lot more sort of fluid, and it felt quite fast-paced as well, the combat here. The special moves, again, if you know the Street Fighter special moves, then you'll be okay in terms of executing these moves. But I've really enjoyed this. So Guilty Gear X2, it comes with Guilty Gear Judgment. I've thought this was an excellent game actually. I've really found it a lot of fun. And the fact that it comes with Judgment, which is a 2D brawler, it just kind of gives you a lot more sort of. There's a lot in this package actually, which is great. So let's take a look at the next game. It's XX Accent Core Plus. So this is Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus, which is a straight-up fighting game. You don't have the Streets of Rage 2D brawler like you had on Guilty Gear Judgment. Now, if we jump into the arcade mode, you've got a similar number of characters as you had on Guilty Gear X2, which is great. It's a good kind of number, good range of characters as well, which is excellent. I'm a big fan of this character, Chip Zanoof, so I'm going to pick him again, just as I did on X2. Um, as with X2, the graphics are great, the gameplay is great. This is really nice, kind of big sprites on the screen. You have a bit of a story on this game, which you didn't have on X2. So that's a plus, I guess. Although I got to say, I wasn't that bothered about the story, if I'm honest. But I found the graphics of this one. This is the more recent of the two games. The graphics are better, and the sprites are much bigger. You've still got the mechanic, like I mentioned, the kind of double jump, which again adds a kind of great dimension to the gameplay and the battle system. But I've really enjoyed both of these games, X2 and XX Accent Core Plus. That name is hard to get used to. But this is again another great fighting game. Really, I feel like I've kind of missed out on not playing this before on the PSP because it just is brilliant. It is an awesome looking game. Love the kind of rock soundtrack as well. So the way both of XX Accent Core Plus and X2 work is you've got you use slashes, so each character's got weapons. So you've got kind of a light slash, hard slash, and then a kick punch move. And so then obviously you've got moves centered around that, kind of to special moves centered around each of those buttons as well. And then you've got a super move you can pull off as well. So in my case, it kind of goes. Seems like he makes Chip a bit tougher when he activates his special. You've also got more aerial moves as well. Since you can do that double jump, it means that there's more kind of an aerial nature to your moves too, which is great. It just makes it kind of adds that new dimension to the battle system. So guys, those are the three Guilty Gear games available on the Vita. One of them, like I said, is a PS1 game. The other two are PSP games, and I think they are really good. I've been really impressed with it. I can't claim to be an expert on this series at all. I'm pretty recent in terms of playing it, but I'm very impressed with the game. So it is something I think worth checking out. Especially, I'd probably go with Guilty Gear Judgment, since you've got X2 and you've got the side-scrolling brawler as well. So you get kind of two different sort of games, gameplays for your money. But I think this is probably better. Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus is probably better in terms of the graphics department. But other than that, I'd probably go with Judgment. But I'm very impressed with both of these games. I wouldn't bother with Guilty Gear on the PS1. I think that's something that you can skip unless you're kind of a big fan of it from the PS1 days. I think the PSP games really improve on the formula. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Fighting Games Month will continue, and I'll have some more games coming soon and more videos. But let me know in the comments what are your favorite fighting games on the Vita, and thank you for watching.